Well, probably wasn't the best time for me to buy an electric car since the whole grid's going to die and, we're be living in campfires.
Yeah.
But gasoline also won't be available.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm built for Mad Max, Like,
but that's the flaw in Mad Max is that who is still refining gasoline at that point?
Yeah.
I don't recall, and maybe they do, but I don't recall them ever addressing like, oh, well, civilization collapsed and it's a barbarian society built on car races in the desert. But also, there's guys deep drilling in the Gulf.
Well, I think in that Furiosa prequel, they do deal with the people that refine gasoline, but where they're getting the raw materials, I don't see a lot of oil drilling going on.
I'll never know. Anna Joy Taylor freaks me out. She's got weird eyes.
Yeah, well, the movie isn't good anyway, so.
It's one of my bigger days. Let me buy a beer. Sure. These fans, I love them. When I came in, they didn't recognize me at first, but then when I told them who I was, next thing you know, they're buying me my favorite beer, light beer from Miller. They know us ex-big leaguers drink light because it's got a third less calories than their regular beer. It's less filling, and it tastes great. Thanks.
Hey, it's a pleasure to buy a beer for a great pitcher like Whitey Ford.
Hey, so I lied.
And welcome back to Off Day with Andy and Jim of Ballpark Nation. Andy, I'm going to ask you how you're doing in a second, but I'd like to talk a little bit about people.
I'd like to know why you're playing with sticks.
This is how I am. As you know, Andy, and I think some of our audience might know, I think Craig Harmon knows. I think he likes his daily shout-outs or his Pie Weekly shout-outs.
Well, he is our audience.
He's really the guy we can depend on. If only he could watch this on like 19 different computers, we'd be so great. I run a really large, really popular film festival. And in fact, on the website Film Freeway, which is where all the film festivals are sort of aggregated to submit to, I have the #1 most popular multi-genre film festival, #2 overall.
I think I have a belt buckle that substantiates these facts.
Yes. And what I love to do is shout out to my friend Jonathan Martin, who is an Astros fan from Utah. I don't know, I never lived in Houston, by the way, who runs the most popular. So if you got to lose, I got an email today with a really bitchy tone about why I've talked all about advertising, but there's nothing on the website. Andy, he was replying to the email in which I explained it all with graphics. He just had to scroll up. Why are people dumb, and why are people first inclination to not be, I might have overlooked something? Because you and I are self-loathing kind of people. We always assume it's our fault first.
I will say in my actual job, I have been known to respond to an email similar to the situation you're talking about with the words, as referenced in the email you're replying to, and just cutting and pasting the paragraph up. I don't know how that works with a film festival notification, but it feels like there's some opportunity to throw a hyperlink in there and say, hey, right there.
I actually am almost to the spot, to the point, and it happens every festival where I just start screen grabbing. And you're not even no text or anything, just replying with that to kind of give it a little bit of
one of your students could build a bot that would just reply for you.
Yeah, that's what I need. I mean, we've got 2 more years after this festival for it to keep going. So, there is an end in sight. I used to love it. I love it less and less. I have a good time when it's there, but we're like all these entitled teenagers we talked about, 15 years ago are now making films, but they're no less entitled without wanting to. It's why I find the filmmakers I accept skewing into their 40s now. And sometimes, like, I have this whole group of like 40-year-old women from New York, and I just love playing their movies because they're good and also they're the best. But that's not what the show's about.
I wonder if this is going to be a really old man take and not original at all. Maybe you just have a participation ribbon for all the submissions and you send that out. Those can't cost that much. They get something. Because it is that age of people.
Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed about my kids is that was a very specific millennial occurrence. I don't see the Gen Alphas, which I guess are the high school kids now up until probably right out of college-ish, having that need. And maybe it's because it's always been met, But I think there was enough pushback on the idea of participation trophies for existing in life that it kind of stopped happening for a little bit.
I agree with that. I do think things move in waves. And I was thinking about this the other day, how my daughter mothers her two children. She mothers her two children like I suspect your mom mothered you and my mom mothered me, where it wasn't super loving and kind, but also here's the harsh realities of things, as opposed to helicoptering and giving the kids everything they need.
At some point, you write things down that you remember that your parents say to you that might have stuck with you. If I had to do that right now with my mom, and I love her to death, and I mean no harm by this statement, her statement on her tombstone would be "Life's not fair," because that's what I would get whenever I would complain about anything.
Yeah,
it's not fair.
But of course, we grew up in the age of no seatbelt, and you leave the house at 7 and you better not be home until 6. Not be home, like don't come in, don't bother me during the summer until it's 6 p.m. and it's time for dinner.
We kept our old man show. We kept our back teen in the garage so I didn't have to come in the house bleeding.
We used to pack a lunch when we'd hit our bikes because we knew that.
Welcome back to the Miller Lite 3 billionth case celebration.
Miller Lite's just about to sell its 3 billionth case, and we're just about to name the best Miller Lite commercial. Let's look at the 3 finalists. Bob Uecker for the front row.
In the front row.
Marvelous Marv Cronberry.
I still don't know why they wanted me to do this commercial.
As I was saying, I don't care what anybody... And me. And the winner for best commercial is Bob Uecker for the front row. Congratulations.
Thank you, buddy. Well, just a few things I'd like to say. Look, we just hit 3 billion!
Hey, let's go to that bar across the street.
The 3 billionth case celebration was brought to you by America's favorite light beer, Miller Lite.
And thanks to the gang at Miller Lite for asking me to do my first commercial for $2,000. Luckily, I was able to scrape up the dough.
So we did get Old Man. Now, listen, actually, we do have a blow that I want to talk a little bit about pop culture-wise, because it's not only affecting baseball, but frankly, it's a movie. It's affecting movies and it's affecting sitcoms, and that's that Bob Uecker has passed away. I don't know that you can point to any one person who has had such a renaissance career as he did. And all of it seemed to be kind of built on his persona of being not a very good baseball player, but loving the game. Even his character, Mr. Belvedere, was a former ball player. So what are your thoughts, man, on he lived to the ripe old age of 90, but
it's a huge loss. This is a guy that played 6 seasons in the major leagues. Not 6 good seasons. I think his career, I looked it up because everybody's on Baseball Reference. His career, he was a -1 WAR. His best year, I think he was at .7 WAR. So great. He contributed to .7 of a win somehow, however that stat works. Started off his career in Milwaukee when the Braves were there, went to the Cardinals for a couple of years when they were really good as a backup, played a season and a half with the Phillies, ended up back with the Braves organization at that time in Atlanta. And like almost immediately after he was done with baseball, I think more accurately, baseball was done with him, he joined the Brewers broadcast booth back in Milwaukee because I guess he found his home there and, ended up staying there. So from 1971 up until I think last year, he was one of the voices, if not the voice, of the Brewers organization.
Yeah.
And I would say even that isn't what drove him to this kind of stratospheric fame. It was the Miller Lite commercials. The Miller Lite commercials is why most people our age and beyond know him, because I don't think he's in Major League. I don't think he's in Major League 2. I don't think he gets Mr. Belvedere without those commercials and really being kind of the lead character in those commercials.
Absolutely. And first of all, I actually missed the whole Miller Lite thing. One of the things I love about baseball is
it tastes great, Jim, and it's less
and it was less filling. I also like the whole, but I ordered a Bud Light commercial with Darth Vader. That was fun. One of the things I love about baseball is it's a very quotable sport, and I do think that you have to be an old soul to fully appreciate it. And one of my favorites is I love that, conservative thinker George Will is such a baseball fan, and he has a quote that's essentially, I grew up miserable and conservative because I lived in St. Louis. If I would have grown up in Chicago, I might have been positive and liberal, like things like that. And Bob Uecker is it's not hard to find them at all. And I've pulled this one up because I thought it was hilarious. And it's the biggest thrill a ball player can have is when your son takes after you. That happened when my Bobby was in his championship little league game. He really showed me something. Struck out 3 times, made an error that lost the game. Parents were throwing things at our car and swearing us as we drove off. Gosh, I was proud. He just had that dry wit that really, really carried him.
Yeah, I will tell you that Major League, and we've talked about this on a number of your different shows, is it certainly in top 5, depending on the day, 1, 2, or 3 of baseball movies ever made.
Yes.
And there's a long list of baseball movies that have been made. And I think you can make a legitimate argument that he steals every scene that he's in and is really the thread that holds that first movie together. Because he's the voice of the fans, even as the broadcaster. And so you feel the pain that he's through of yet another Cleveland Indians season and, the wonder of when it starts turning around. But that movie came out 36 years ago, and it is still part of the baseball fan zeitgeist that exists. Yeah. I remember watching it in 1989, the day after prom, and dragging my poor girlfriend at the time to the movie theater. After we had stayed up all night and she was asleep in the theater, and I didn't care because I was laughing. We did not stay together.
I saw it with your brother the weekend it came out.
Yeah. So it's, but Uecker, the spirit of Uecker carries that. And before that, I will admit to watching Mr. Belvedere more because I had a weird crush on Tracy Wells.
Nothing weird about it.
She sells real estate in Encino now. I looked her up this morning. So if you'd like to buy a house in Encino, she's there and evidently available. Her husband died 23 years ago. She's probably over it. Anyway.
Not much older than us, though.
Again, it was a slapstick kind of wacky 80s family comedy, but he was the dry wit, the grounding that held that show together and let it go for 118 episodes.
Yeah, 6 seasons, right?
Because honestly, it wasn't remarkable, groundbreaking television, but it was entertaining enough to stay on an ABC lineup that was pretty packed during those days.
Yeah, and he was such a good presence on that show because he was okay with being the foil, right? Like he was okay with being the butt of the joke. And the self-deprecating thing, I think, carries through. You're so right about Major League. And, one of the tropes of any baseball movie is having the broadcaster. Heck, we're in the middle of watching 42 with my baseball and American culture class, and Dr. Cox is the play-by-play for that movie. But Uecker totally takes it to another level. And sure, it's a little raunchy at times, but I think it also captures how a lot of fans felt about their teams that were struggling, where I cannot get through a game unless I'm drinking. And that used to be our existence, right, before the Astros got good.
I mean, the line that always hits me is when he loses the ad read, and I don't care, nobody's listening anyway. And there were plenty of days that I felt like I might be the only person listening to the Astros radio broadcast in high school, because why would you?
Yeah. Was that Milo for you yet, or was that still?
No, that was Milo was on TV and Gene Elston had the radio call, and they switched off during different innings after a while. But that
got confused. They kept that going for a while with Bill Brown.
Yeah, 86 was my freshman year of high school, so that playoff series was happening while I was a freshman in high school. Everything else was just disappointment season after disappointment season leading up to Nolan Ryan not being re-signed or being asked to take a pay cut. That was my Astros high school history. This really, really high for the franchise at that time, and just a steady downhill thrust after that.
I had Reed Ryan on Let's Get To one time, and I was telling him the story of how I was crying in my garage when Nolan Ryan didn't re-sign, and telling my mother it's okay because he's old and he sucks anyway. And then Reed Ryan said, yeah, all he did was throw 3 more. I was like, I know, Reed, that's the joke. Yeah. I get it. Yeah. I've even tuned in to listen to some Bob Uecker games on the Brewers. And of course, at the end of his career, he was not traveling to road games. He was purely doing home. I wish of all there's a lot of people I wish could have experienced a World Series, and I think that would have just tickled him to death to get to call a World Series winner.
And just so everybody's aware, this isn't just us gushing. Twitter, Blue Sky, the various outlets are kind of all in mourning with Bob Uecker passing recently. But he was a National Radio Hall of Fame inductee in 2001. He was a Ford Frick winner before anybody in the Astros organization was a Ford Frick winner, even though Milo kept calling himself the Hall of Famer well past that date. So it's not just, hey, he had a niche of being a funny guy who happened to do baseball radio. He was somebody that was recognized by his peers, by the Hall of Fame, as one of the best of the best. No, he's not Red Barber. No, he's not Vin Scully, but he's his own thing. And I think that's more than anything else, the best thing you can say about him. He was not an acquired taste. He was somebody who could literally appeal to anybody and get them into a baseball game and make them feel the pain of being not a great baseball player.
Yeah, I mean,
and still having that love for it.
You're completely right. And it really comes down to, he was sort of a self-deprecating Garrison Keillor in a way, that the way he told his own story. And here's another quote for you before we move on. I knew when my career was over because in 1965, my baseball card came out with no picture. I mean, fair. That's great.
That's 100 appearances on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
As not a stand-up comedian. Like,
no. Just because he was good to have around.
Yeah. Well, rest in peace, Bob Uecker. If you haven't watched Major League, I know I usually wait until the spring. I will probably do a little bit earlier. And I've honestly been considering a Mr. Belvedere rewatch anyway, so that might have to happen. We have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is Alex Bregman. What was funny is I came home yesterday, Andy, and I told Jess, I said, hey, it looks like Bregman might end up signing with the Cubs for fewer years and a fewer AAV than what the Astros had offered him. And she's like, really? I was just reading it was the Red Sox. So regardless, Andy, it looks like he's going to end up getting not near the contract he wanted and less than what the Astros were willing to pay. Does this exonerate Dana Brown somewhat, that if we were really the highest offer and he didn't take it?
Well, I think the majority of Astros fans, when they tune back in a few weeks when spring training starts, are going to be pissed off that Bregman's not in Kissimmee because they checked out in October, and we'll check back in here.
Yeah, especially because the Texans are in the playoffs, so they're like,
yeah, the Texans are playoff. Rockets are playing well. Great, they have things to distract them. Most of them are Longhorn fans, evidently, according to my various feeds. So they're done season 2. So I think there's going to be a lot of misunderstanding. Well, whatever Bregman ends up signing for, well, why didn't the Astros just offer that? And the thing is, the Astros did. They offered a 5-year deal for $156 million. There's been at least 3 sources that have confirmed those numbers. So that was a real offer. Boris and Bregman decided they could get more. And I think they wanted more years, 1 or 2, and they certainly wanted to get up to closer to $200 million for a total package. However, that spread out over the years, I think, was part of the negotiation. And I think what you're seeing is that once again, Scott Boras has overshot the market because the big teams that had big money to spend didn't need a third baseman.
Oh, that's a great point. Too. That's the other thing. That's the other way you have to the other way you look at things is, yeah, you're totally right. Like, there just wasn't going to be that market for him in the first place.
And when you take the Dodgers and the Yankees basically out of the equation for a player, their market goes down. It just does.
Yeah.
You will have the weird things like Corbin Burns signing with the Diamondbacks, because I don't think anybody saw that coming.
Correa with the Twins.
Yeah, but that's the Diamondbacks literally saying that's what we're doing this offseason and nothing else, because we spent our money there. He's going to end up signing a deal, I think, and I will caveat this in just a second, but he's going to end up signing a deal like what Correa signed with the Twins. It's going to be a 3-year deal, and each year is going to have an opt-out. It's going to be based on his performance. And it's a really interesting deal for Alex Bregman as a player because, as you know, as Astros fans know, he doesn't hit before May.
Yeah.
He just doesn't. He's tried everything. He's redone it. We hear on an annual basis about I'm working more in my legs so I don't pull my hamstrings, or I've changed my batting approach, or whatever he has tried up to this point. You look at his numbers, March and April, they don't look like the same baseball player as they do June through October.
And guess what? They're not going to get any better if he's playing in Chicago and it's still cold.
Yeah, and he's not younger. So I think they overestimated his value in the market. I think that's a failure on Boris's part. And yes, this show absolutely recognizes the player ultimately decides who they're signing with and what they're signing for. But they're also relying on Boris and his team to give them an accurate lay of the land. And I don't know that that's exactly what Bregman's camp got. To the Astros' credit, they were very honest with both, I assume, Bregman and Boris, and with the public. We want Alex Bregman to re-sign with us. We're going to make him an offer, but we also have a clock that we have to work against.
Yeah.
So you either get with us and let us know what's happening, or we're going to move on. And you saw them move on. I still think the initial deal with the Cubs, bringing Paredes on, which was the idea of we're going to re-sign Bregman, Paredes can play first.
Totally.
But then you saw, 2 weeks later, they signed Christian Walker because Boris didn't respond, wouldn't respond, cease negotiations, whatever you want to call that. So Bregman is, as of January 16th, still unemployed.
Yeah, and I feel bad for him in a way, too, because it's looking more and more like he might not sign until spring training begins. And we've seen this story a couple of times in the last few years where that never works out well for the player.
Now, the caveat I was talking about to my statement earlier is that Boris this morning or last night released a interview through one of his intermediaries in the media saying that, yes, Pete Alonso is probably going to take one of these 3-year make good type of deals with the Mets, but there might be some animosity there that'll be up to Pete to negotiate. But Bregman is going to hold out for a long-term deal. And I've just got to think that if there was a long-term deal to be had, he would have already taken it. I think even Alex Bregman is smart enough to know that he would like to know where he's going in 3.5 weeks.
He's got to find a local grocery store chain to carry his salsa. He's got to move his wife and kid. It's a whole thing.
The rebranded New Mexican salsa, yes.
Whatever that is.
They'll slap a new label on it in the distribution center.
I do feel like you nailed it 100%. Yes, it is ultimately the player's decision. Which is why when Altuve says, I want a team-friendly deal to stay here, that's what he got, was a team-friendly deal to stay here. And it does seem like the Astros offered them what would have been, correct me if I'm wrong, it would have been the biggest contract in Astros history, correct?
By $3 or $4 million, I think. Okay. I think Jordan got 151. Some of that was buying out free agency or arbitration years, but I think that was a total package there. And Hader was 95. So 156 would have been the biggest in franchise history. And honestly, it's like 70 million less than, or excuse me, not even 7 million less, 8 million less than Drayton McClain paid for the Astros when he bought the team.
Oh, wow. Inflation's real, man. In case you weren't
back in the 90s.
In case you weren't aware. Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for him. Bad advice. I'm sure if he knew that if he knew now, if he knew then what he knows now, he would have taken the deal. But the Astros absolutely couldn't sit on their foot. And here's the thing. I believe that they've actually going to have an upgrade on offense at third base, but a downgrade defensively.
Yep.
But first base is going to be head and shoulders better than it was the last 2 years.
Yeah, because you can make a legitimate argument that Christian Walker is going to be the best first baseman in the American League this coming year.
Yeah, he's already a Gold Glover, and he hit 30 or 40 bombs last year. Not since Yuli's batting title year with that 21.
Yes, that
we haven't had a first baseman that really produced. Because yes, he got really hot in the playoffs, but people forget Astros Twitter wanted to cut Yuli. So.
Now, to be fair, Astros Twitter wants to DFA every player that disappoints on a game-to-game basis.
That's very true. Very, very true. So, yeah, I mean, I obviously want the best for Alex because I'm a loyal guy when it comes to, we're in the golden age of Astros baseball in part because of him. But I completely understand why the Astros didn't go more years, and they put the best offer in franchise history out there. And Bregman should know that he should have known that that was a big reach for the Astros because he's seen other guys leave that didn't get that offer, but he got the offer.
Yep. And again, to be fair to the Astros, these deals that we've lost, with the exception of maybe Garrett Cole, and depending on how you want to look at Carlos Correa, these deals haven't paid off for the teams that have signed these former players.
Cole's
and
probably the one that has the most.
Yeah, but you look at George Springer, who I think is the closest comp to what Alex Bregman was looking for. I don't think many Toronto fans would tell you that they got their money's worth on George Springer. As a matter of fact, you're starting to see maybe we can get rid of the last 2 years of his contract talk come up if you go to Toronto fan sites.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, he's had extended stints on the IL in every season that he has been in Toronto. And yeah, he occasionally has those George Springer moments. And, George Springer is my favorite player of this run, and I don't blame him for leaving because he had an actual, I think,
axe to grind.
Yeah.
It was legitimate. He got messed up with the whole service time manipulation that, our golden god, Jeff Luhnow, doesn't get any grief for, which is weird to me. But anyway.
Yeah. There you go. All right. So
I just hope that I hope Alex lands somewhere. If you look at the internet, Toronto is still in play, kind of. The Cubs might be in play. The Red Sox might be in play. He'll end up somewhere. And he'll play as well as he can, and really don't pay attention to him until middle of May. I think that's fair. But I really don't want to hear the noise from our fan base about how, whatever he signed for, we should have signed him for that because he's a name we know. Because that's all it comes down to at that point.
Yeah, totally.
Of all the things that I've done, this has always been number one, baseball. The commercials, the films, the television series. I could never wait for everything to get back to baseball. I still, and this is not sour grapes by any means, still think I should have gone in as a player. Thank you. Thank you very much. There it is, boys. The proof is in the pudding.
Well, the Astros did at least get involved in international signings, and traditionally they've done really, really well. What are some of your takes on some of the players that the Astros were able to sign? And I think they're still suffering from not having as much money as other teams, right?
Yes. I don't think it's I don't think that's a punishment phase anymore. I think it's because of signing Hader and some other guys. They signed 19 players, I believe, yesterday. They had a bonus pool of $5.6 million. The big name in there is an Alvarez from Cuba. I don't want to do more research than that because I want to put unrealistic expectations. I'm even willing to find a guy named Fields, draft him, and give him to the Dodgers if we can get another Yordan out of this deal. But Kevin Alvarez is a outfielder. He's supposed to be I don't want to say Kyle Tucker clone, but somebody that reasonably could be at that level of performance in a couple of years. Very few of these guys, and I think this is another level setting for Astros fans, very few of these guys that sign in the international pool are going to be in Houston anytime soon. And I can point to Pedro Leon, who was one of these guys 4 years ago, and finally got a cup of coffee this past season only because we had 800 injuries in the outfield. Some of these guys are 16 years old. They're from the Dominican, a lot from Venezuela. I like the idea that we have doubled down on Venezuela in the past few years. We got out of that world a little bit. Through some changes, I guess, when Drayton sold the team and we got out of Latin America and got back in it, and it really starting to see fruits from that labor, and we have for the past several years. But Alvarez is kind of the jewel of the class. He's a left-handed hitting outfielder with a plus hit tool and a plus power tool. You can teach him to field at a major league level. I think that's a big pick, but he's also 17 years old.
Yeah. 17. Usually these guys, outside of the Astros pitching gems they found, usually you're looking at 14 or 15-year-old signees, right?
Yeah, unless it's, Framber Valdez and you give him a can of Coke to sign with your team.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got 18,000 left over. If you'll take that and some Coke, we'll. And that worked out.
But really, when you think about the odds, you sign 19 of these guys. If 3 of them make the big club, that was a good signing period.
Yes, three would be fantastic out of this group, because that is better than the percentage of guys who make a major league roster. And that's not even being an all-star or being a Hall of Fame level type player. I'm just talking about making a major league roster.
Yeah, exactly. Replacement level.
So, yeah, I mean, things to be excited about. In a couple of years, we will inevitably get somebody who gets really excited about Kevin Alvarez now and decides that he needs to be playing right field for us by, I don't know what, April. But that's not happening. Welcome to the Mauricio Dubon era in left field.
Definitely. Until obviously, the All-Star break. All right, before we get to our last topic, though, we are going to jump into our Longhorn Aggie and Astros clip of the week.
3rd down and a yard from the 30-yard line. Kelly, Ags 5 men up on the line of scrimmage. They run the option. Cromer looking for the corner, and Dadwin says, no, you're not going that way.
Scored 7, and A&M scored 7 this half. Look at her trying to win the game with onside kick. Doc Wynn. Doc Wynn is going to have a touchdown.
3rd down and 11. Oklahoma State active on defense. Young gets away. Great pump fake. Gets the 1st down and then some. Say goodbye to Vince Young. Touchdown, Texas.
Line drive, right center field. That's number 3,000. And he drives in a run, and he's going for second. Tavares with the throw. He's out, but that's 3,000 hits for Craig Biggio.
The arm is back. Here he comes. 1-2. Swing and a miss. Goodbye, Detroit. Hello, New York. Hi, Raleigh Fingers. What a job he is being mobbed by his teammates as the Brewers have come from behind today to beat Detroit by a score of 2-1. Oh, what a victory today for this Milwaukee Brewer Ball Club. And Milwaukee will face New York for the American League Eastern Division Championship. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 1 out. The stretch. Jackson leads the pitch. Is hit over Cooper's head to right, a base hit. Here is Reggie turning second, trying for third. Moore's going to have a play on him to throw in time to get Jackson. Oh, what a throw by Moore. Oh, what a throw by Charlie Moore. He was right on line to Molitor, and Molly was waiting for Jackson when he got there. I want to tell you, folks, nobody in this league has played better in right field than Charlie Moore has this year.
Gantner, there he goes. The pitch, a swing and a fly ball, right field and deep. Get up, and get out of here. Gone for Swaim, and they've done it again. 12 in a row on a 2-run blast by Swaim to win it. Oh, my goodness.
All set to work. Here it is. Yelich sends one to right center and deep. Get up! Get up! Get out of here and gone for Yelich. He has tied the game with a booming home run. Ryan Braun sends it to left center and deep. Get up! Get out of here! Gone for Ryan Braun. He just hit a walk-off out of here. And the Brewers have come from behind to beat the Cardinals back-to-back home runs. Everybody on their feet here. Hader ready again. Here it is. Swinging fly ball in the right center. Broxton is there. And they're the champions. They have done it. Celebrating at Wrigley Field. They are the champions. Hit in the air to right and deep. Get up! Get up! Get out of
All right. Good times, Andy. Good times. So before we jump out of here, we are going to be doing a special episode of this show next week, highlighting Saturday Night Live and some of our favorite moments. But there's a cool documentary coming out. My question is, how pumped are you for that? And how much did you like or not like the movie about the first night of Saturday Night Live?
I loved Saturday Night. I think Jason Reitman did an incredible job of building tension to something you already knew the answer to. So you know that the first episode went on air. And for those of you that aren't familiar, it is an hour and a half long, literally the 90 minutes leading up to the first broadcast of the first episode and all the things that happen. Now, it's not entirely historically accurate, but that doesn't really matter. There's enough Easter eggs in there for longtime Saturday Night Live fans and pop culture fans in general. But, for those of you that didn't know that Billy Crystal was instrumental in formation of the show, even though he didn't get on the show until 1985. If you wanted to know, how the cast got along and why it took Belushi so long to sign his contract and what Garrett Morris's issues were being on the show at all, there's just a lot of goodness in there. But I think from a pure storytelling standpoint, being able to build that level of tension and suspense over 90 minutes, even though everybody in the studio audience, everybody in the audience, whether you watched it at home or in a movie theater, knows that the show went on the air. And it happened, and it's been happening for now 50 years.
50 years.
I think it was a great, great film. It was something that I did not mind just outright buying on Apple TV rather than doing the rental and then regretting that I spent $15 to rent it and then I wanted to buy it anyway.
Yeah.
There is a new documentary out, Beyond Saturday Night, on Peacock. It dropped today, all 4 episodes. And it's not a history of necessarily. It is broken up to 4 different episodes. Like I said, the first one is about the audition process. And they talk to people from all levels of the 50 years worth of casts. And, when I'd say all levels, Anthony Michael Hall is one of the people that they interview about auditioning.
Right.
And for those of you that don't remember, Anthony Michael Hall and Robert Downey Jr. were cast members for one season, the season that probably almost got the show canceled.
Yeah.
The next one is about the writer's room, which I'm really excited about because whether you know this or not, almost every popular TV show that you've liked in the last 50 years had writers come from Saturday Night Live and then go propagate elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about writers from The Office, from The Simpsons, Parks and Rec, Scrubs, just the whole gamut of shows that we love have writers from there. Probably the one that a lot of people don't know about and wouldn't associate with comedy even at this point is Bob Odenkirk. And if you miss Mr. Show, that's on you. But if you only know Bob Odenkirk from Breaking Bad and from Better Call Saul, he started out as a comedy writer. And some of the stuff that when he was writing in the mid 80s is just genius level stuff. And you could see it carry over into his later work. Then there is a episode strictly dedicated to more cowbell. And I'm not sure how I feel about that because it's one of the Jimmy Fallon episodes. Yeah. And yes, he broke during the entire thing and they still made it work. And then the last episode's about that 11th season when Lorne Michaels comes back after a 5-year absence from the show. So I'm really excited. I'm glad Peacock dropped all 4 episodes tonight or today because that means when I can't sleep later tonight, I'll have something to watch.
Yeah.
But I would consider myself, not for trivia perspective, but just a super fan of the show, of the franchise. It is something that I've watched my entire life. It rankles me every time I hear, talk about the show in front of somebody and you hear is that show still on? I haven't watched it in 20 years. Because that and Saturday Night Dead, those are the narratives that I literally have heard since I was in junior high.
Yeah.
Do I watch it live every Saturday night? No. Can I catch literally everything I need to see on YouTube or Twitter or TikTok? Yes.
Yeah.
So,
and
I think the thing that is so interesting, most of the old episodes, parts of the old episodes are up on Peacock. So you can literally watch all 50 seasons if you want to, although because of streaming rights and music rights and some other things, some of the episodes are not 65 minutes long. Some of them are like 15 minutes long and you get like 2 skits. But one of the things that I think is really interesting is that everybody has their favorite cast, and in their minds, that cast was golden every single time they took the stage. And the reality is you get 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 great skits a week, and it's usually closer to 2, and then a lot of filler.
A lot of filler. Yeah.
And it's been that way since the very first season.
So we're going to do this episode on Tuesday. So I'm encouraging friends of ours that watch the show, Craig, including you, send us a video about what your favorite cast was or what your favorite sketch was. Try to get it to us as soon as possible so we can watch it before we record. But, I think you're right. We have a main, and when the main cast departs, we tend to have departed the show. But Jessica, I will be honest, Jessica never, ever, ever stopped watching. And this new cast, the last couple of seasons, has been great. The writing has been fantastic. So Andy and I will be back to share our favorite casts and our favorite sketches. Until then, Andy, have a good weekend.
Hey, good golf, good tennis, slime in the ice machines. Some Marvin Zindler kind of day.
Well, I'll also be reporting from my live experience this weekend with the Colorado Avalanche. So until then, we will see you next week.
Go hockey.
Just a reminder, fans, about Die Hard Night coming up here at the stadium. Free admission to anyone who was actually alive the last time the Indians won a pennant. Post-game show is brought to you by... Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it. That's all we got. One goddamn hit.
You can't say goddamn on the air.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway. But I'll tell you, these Cleveland fans are great. Listen to them get behind Vaughn. Hey, way to go, Rick! This is Harry Doyle welcoming you to another edition of TP Talk. Hey, in case you haven't noticed, and judging by the attendance you haven't, the Indians have managed to win a few here and there and are threatening to climb out of the cellar, which will bring up Haywood, who leads the league in most offensive categories, including nose hair. When this guy sneezes, he looks like a party favor. Haywood's a convicted felon, isn't he, Monty?
Doesn't really say it here.
Well, he should be. Monty, anything to add?
No.
He's not the best color man in the league for nothing, folks. Here's the pitch to Serrano. He swings and drives from the deep left. Way back. This ball is gone. Yeah!